Shravanam Mananam Nidhidhyasanam. Listen, reflect and absorb. Dear listeners, Sai Ram and welcome to our radio series in which a divine discourse by Bhagawan is played in small parts, and following each part a short discussion is undertaken to reflect on the message. Today's episode was first broadcast live on 4th February 2016. The discourses undertaken for study in this program are from the series of discourses delivered as part of the summer course in Indian Culture and Spirituality, 1991. Have a listen, please.
Offering a most loving pranams at Bhagawan's lotus feet. Dear listeners, we welcome you to this week's episode of Shravanam Mananam Nidhidhyasanam. Those of you who've been with us for the past 2-3 weeks will know that we are going through the 1991 Summer Course series. We're in the first discourse. We've played out about 4 clips from that discourse. And the last week, we stopped at a very interesting point where Swami was talking about, almost in a sense, a summary of some of the points which we went through in the previous Shravanam Mananam Nidhidhyasanam, that is the 1990 Summer Course. But before we go into the discourse as such and a few of the points which Swami is making, I invite Brother Sai Prakash to join me. Sai Ram, Sai Prakash.
Sai Ram Prem. It's again a beautiful journey going through the 1991 Summer Course. And as you rightly said, there are points from the previous year's Summer Course as well. But again, it's put forward or presented in such a beautiful way, they come out as new points again. But it's the same message, the same eternal message which Swami brings out in many different ways.
Absolutely. In fact, I remember once one of the people in the ashram came up to me and had the audacity to tell that over the years, Swami's views on some things have improved or matured. I couldn't hold myself. I just laughed out. Because some things, I remember one of the earlier programs which Arvind and myself had done, we were doing something on Swami's message and Swami on love.
Okay.
So in the course of that, I think we were doing on karma, and from karma we spoke about love. And it kind of struck us as a beautiful thought that the highest form of karma is nishkama karma. Correct. But the highest form of prema is also nishkama prema. Right? When you don't have any desire. Correct. So it really struck us, we thought, that's a beautiful thought. But much later, when we were doing Swami's Satyam Shivam Sundaram, going through Swami's life, this particular term was there in Swami's first discourse. Right? And that is the consistency of Swami's message. We might say that 1990 Swami said this, 91 Swami said this, but that message is absolutely eternal. There is no difference.
For the sheer benefit of the devotee who pointed it out, probably he had evolved. So
absolutely. I think very true. That's precisely what I told this person.
And he has come over to, understand Swami's message more. So
right.
That's right.
And that's something which we probably went through during the previous season of Shravanam Mananam Nidhidhyasanam.
Absolutely. Now looking back, it was quite audacious on our part to even think of taking up such a topic. But it is purely divine inspiration. And it went on really great. Coming back to this discourse, as he would always do, I think the first 1 or 2 discourses is like an introduction where he sets the mood for the main topic of the Summer Course series that Swami is going to take up. And in this case, it is the Upanishads. But Swami starts this discourse, this first discourse, the inaugural discourse, on a very general note and comes quickly to education. And he says how the problems of today are directly related to selfishness that is there in education. And he brings out how Deva Priti, Papa Bhiti, Sanganiti is very important for the society to be healthy and happy. He comes to proper study of mankind is man. And then he says selfishness is by and large the underlying factor which is reason for all the problems we face today.
Right. And then he goes on to this part where he speaks about education. And of course, what Swami usually says, that education is not merely for earning a living, and also that as people who are educating the youth, as teachers, as administrators, what is important is to create a system which completely separates the process of learning from the process of looking out for a job or things like that.
Very true.
And I remember, in fact, I had a word with Professor Bhagya. For a long time, he was a placement officer in our university, a completely defunct role, because Swami was very certain, very clear about this idea that there should not be any kind of campus placements or recruitments.
That's right.
During the course of the thing, when the college is functioning. In fact, he said there was once a notice put up on the board saying that some company had sent their vacancies saying that these positions we are looking for people.
Okay.
And it was not a campus placement or anything, only that mail or something was put up on the notice board.
An information.
And Swami got so upset.
Okay.
He got very upset. He called the principal. He said, "What is this? Why have you done this?" He said, "See, even when the boys are walking down the corridor, they should not see something like that.
Right.
And they should not say that I should get that. No, I should work for that." And that is very important. When they're studying, let their focus be on studying alone.
I mean, the orientation and the guidance which Swami gave to students and to educators and to education, the process of education, is so immense. And there are few people who have, resonated with such an idea and who have tried it in their own levels. And, the last week we ended with a quote by Rabindranath Tagore.
Right.
In fact, that quote was taken from an essay which he had written on education. And to be very honest, I am trying to read that and complete the essay, which just comes to about 10 pages. But it is so deep, and each sentence sends you into a spin. You just sit and you have to think and ponder on the weight and the truth of each statement. But for the benefit of the listeners, I read out a small portion of that essay in the previous episode.
Right.
And I'd just like to read it quickly, and maybe there are a few points we could dwell on. He says, "On each race is the duty laid to keep alight its own lamp of mind as its part in the illumination of the world. To break the lamp of any people is to deprive it of its rightful place in the world festival. He who has no light is unfortunate enough, but utterly miserable is he who, having it, has been deprived of it, or has forgotten all about it. India has proved that it has its own mind, which has deeply thought and felt and tried to solve according to its light the problems of existence. The education of India is to enable this mind of India to find out truth, to make this truth its own wherever found, and to give expression to it in such a manner as only it can do." Basically, the import of what he's saying, as I understood it, is that India has something very unique to offer. And our system of education that has been there for centuries and for I don't know how many centuries, has slowly changed its color, and it's being influenced a lot by the West. In fact, further in the essay, as he says, why should we change our system of education? Why should we ape some other culture and some other? Because their systems of education are based on their culture. Our system should be based on our culture. And since we have something very unique, we should not give it up.
In fact, once when we were talking to Dr. Ravishankar Polishetty, who's that doctor who's doing a lot of research in Ayurveda and
Correct.
how it's so much superior to the modern medicine, which
Right.
he's actually a doctorate from the modern medicine to, I think, is a cardiologist. or
Allopathy,
something,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
See, he was saying that the idea of having something like Ayurveda, which is so comprehensive.
Yes.
He was telling us that here is something which is such a perfect tool to take care of the body, which is given so easily.
Right.
I mean, the one thing is we've forgotten it, but it's given so easily. His idea is it is given so that the upkeep of the body is such a small thing in the scheme of things that you've come to do in this life.
Okay.
So it is taken care of.
Oh.
Don't worry about it. There are
That's an
higher things,
interesting-
right? You have to think of.
That's a very interesting
Right?
perspective.
He said, but otherwise you're using all your time and energy and resources only to take care of this body. It's so simple, take care of it, forget it. So like that, if you look at the entire history of ancient India, prosperity was given. In this land, as Swami would say, it's Annapurna. It was always filled with plenty.
Right.
And we saw in our Indian culture a thing that when you have everything is taken care of. You have money in plenty, you have prosperity in plenty.
Right.
You have fields like Ayurveda to take care of you. When you are taken care of like this, the mind automatically goes to something higher.
Very true.
And we could see that in this Indian culture. And I think whenever Swami says that, you go back to the Indian culture, because there was this overtone which said that these are all simple things which can be handled over a period of time. Go for the higher reality, go for the higher goal.
Yes, of course that. But there is also this interesting perspective of moderation. I think it was a moral obligation that the rich had in our tradition, in our culture, to share their wealth and to share the knowledge. As Swami would often say, anything stagnating or piling up in one place is unhealthy. It's not good. So in that way, he naturally leads even from this to the next topic about money. And Swami says, when selfishness is inculcated in the level of, when you're a student, then that carries on. So he says, so your approach to having money and your approach to spending money and sharing money is also influenced by that selfishness.
Right. I think, in a sense, what Swami was doing through the education institution is that, Swami did not create a system which taught different courses altogether. It was the same mathematics, science, economics. But the moment that purpose of life itself is given to you, a new dimension opens. And you look at everything that is presented to you differently.
That's right. It's like wearing a color glasses, for
absolutely,
example.
The education which is given to you. Swami would often say, education should give you confidence.
Right.
But in this paragraph, which Swami says, the places where there are more universities and colleges, you find more selfish people.
Very true.
So in a sense, education has actually made you insecure. When will you try to grab and cheat and try to make something yours which is not yours? That's when you're insecure.
Right.
But the same education, Swami says, which has got to give you confidence. We have these subhashitas in Sanskrit, beautiful ones, where they say that education is the only wealth which cannot be stolen, which which never decays. By sharing, it grows. So in that light, when a person is educated, he should be completely fearless.
Correct.
Nothing should, losing anything should not make him feel insecure. But here we have a case where the more intelligent people become, they find out more ways of, milking the system.
Very true. And, many times all the frauds that happen are done by very educated people and very intelligent people. And they know they are doing the fraud. It's not an innocent act of just a mistake. It is deliberate, and so that's what Swami is bringing our attention to. And then he goes on to say that this moderation is very important, just like the body temperature. There has to be limits. Yes, money is important. You need money for leading a comfortable life, but everything has its own limits. And he gives the example of our blood pressure and our body temperature. Again, he says, forgetting this, I am surprised to see what educated people do in the interest of money. He says even illiterate villagers have a sense of sacrifice, but educated people have none. Right. This is something, which really is so true, because as a part of the Gram Seva and as a part of few other projects, when you go to the villages, they have nothing. I mean, they don't have a bed on which they sleep. They sleep on the floor. But they are there with a glass of buttermilk ready to offer it to you. It's so beautiful. And to talk about places where, you don't even know your neighbors. I mean, there are many people who don't know their neighbors. It's kind of ironic, but, the situation which Chennai faced recently with all the flooding, in one sense, some of the people said, that was a time we all got together and we got to know people who are living in our same building because the first 2 floors were all flooded up and we had to go to upper floors. And so we got to know, oh, you are also living in this building. I mean, we've become so narrow in the pursuit of earning and in the pursuit of our own selfish lives that we don't have time to share.
Right. Here when Swami says, the extent to which the educated mind can, stoop down when it comes to cheating, corruption, reminded, the 2008 crisis which happened, the debt crisis which happened in the US.
Correct.
They had this congressional hearing where they invited all these bank, CEOs of banks and people in the federal bank.
Okay.
One question which was asked to them is, you are the most intelligent people in this field of economics.
Correct.
How didn't you see this coming?
Why didn't you? Correct.
And it was shown through their email conversations that, these people knew that it was coming.
Oh.
And they were only, kind of keeping it under the carpet so that they could make the money.
Selfishness.
Really,
Absolutely.
When Swami says this, in fact, in another discourse, Swami says, the beauty of Kali Yuga in the sense is that you can see evil quality play out its full life in front of your eyes.
Okay.
Like, you can see the different shades of it, how it rises, how it causes chaos, and how it brings down the whole system. Mm-hmm. You can see it in a conceivable frame of time.
That is a very unique definition of Kali Yuga. Then all this Swami is talking about education, about selfishness, and then he says a very beautiful thing. He just says education does not mean collecting facts about the world in your head. He says, Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. That broad-mindedness, that vision when you have, that you want the whole world to be happy, that is the sign of a truly educated person. And it's such a beautiful and interesting perspective where he says, you have to move from I to we. He says, you have to move from your family to the society. And when you go from I to we, then that is a sign of a truly educated person.
All right. In fact, I was referring to that interview we had with the Chancellor of the university.
Right.
Justice Venkatachalaya.
Mm-hmm.
When he was asked, what do you think with all your experience you can bring in for this system?
Okay.
Because he's been the chairman of the Human Rights Commission and all that. And he said, you have no idea. I've seen the worst of the human mind. Especially when you talk about human rights violation. I mean, I've seen brother turn against brother. Mm-hmm. When I come here, when I see the system, he said, just observing the system is meditative.
Beautiful.
So beautifully put it. Just observing the system is meditative. I'm sitting here, these students are coming and serving. We have these boys who form the hospitality team, especially when there are some high delegates coming in. So these boys are serving. He's saying, just look at these boys the way they're serving. Look at the students the way they are serving. If a system can inject such culture into them, you have no idea. I am becoming emotional seeing this.
Beautiful.
He said, it's so fulfilling for me to see this. He said, I'm 85 years old now. I'm only thinking, what can I take from here?
How beautiful. And, it doesn't come easily. Swami himself led the path. He showed how you should serve. Even if you take this particular aspect of serving guests, Swami has himself showed and he has explained to students from which side you have to serve the sambar, from which side you have to serve the rice, how you should serve without spilling. Every step he has personally taught the students. So since he taught the students who have now become teachers, they pass on that to serve with love, to serve with care. And I heard from some of our teachers, I'm sure you would have heard as well, that he would visit the rooms to which the guests were to come. And his hand will first go on top of the mirror to see if there is dust there. And he would see if there is a towel in the bathroom. He would
That's
say,
the thing. Can you imagine? Here is Swami, all said and done, he's built such a huge organization.
Right.
Even forgetting the part that he is divine.
Right,
right. And now if you bring in the part that he's divine, imagine Swami would walk into the bathroom and check whether The soaps are there, the towels are there, the toilet is clean.
Right.
Such was the detail he went through. I mean, it's not that he did not trust the people who are doing it.
Correct.
But he was constantly telling that, this is the detail with which you have to, do things. And this was the culture which Swami taught us, Probably 100 years later, if it has not been told enough times, people might think that, Satya Sai Baba gave discourses on Indian culture. I mean, the discourses which he gave was such a small part of his teaching. Because
every second was a lesson.
Absolutely.
There is a very subtle but a beautiful link. He says, you have to go from I to we. And when that word I comes, Swami has, but what is this I? He says there are two types of I. One is the single letter I and one is the three alphabet I, E-Y-E. He says E-Y-E is the body and the single letter I, capital I, is the soul. So he says all the body, the senses, the mind, these are all instruments which we learnt very beautifully in the 1990 series. And he says the I, the letter I is the Atma. And you have to stick to that. And he says how students, a very beautiful example again, as Swami says, you say my house, my car, my pant, my shirt, my book, everything is my, but who are you? He says, I cannot see students who ask themselves, who am I? When you say my body, you are different from the body. When you say who are you, then who are you? Enquire along these lines and the foundation of spirituality will dawn in you. I mean, that's a beautiful...
In fact, there was another discourse where Swami says, when students join a university, when join a college, nothing, at least keep informing them about the concept called God.
Okay.
Because on one hand, you're trying to sharpen this intellect. On the other hand, you're giving them this concept called God. At some point, he or she will stop and ask, who is God? Okay. Where is God? That inquiry will start. It is the onus of the establishment to give that input to God. In fact, I think just today somebody forwarded a beautiful talk by one of the doctors.
Okay.
He speaks of another doctor who is a very senior doctor, 65-year-old cardiac surgeon, who is supposed to be one of the best in his field.
Okay.
And he does not look at the patients. His juniors, everybody look at the patient. If there's any serious case, then they call him.
Okay.
So there's a 6-year-old girl who, there is no way she's going to survive without the surgery. And with the surgery, the chances are very less.
Okay.
He comes in and he looks at this girl and he's an expert. He's done thousands of surgeries. So, you don't have that kind of an emotional attachment to the work you do. You just clinically come and do it.
Correct.
He comes in, for some reason, he just looks at the 6-year-old girl and he says, I'm going to operate on this girl. I'm not sure whether I will, at the end of the surgery, she's going to be still alive. Suddenly there's a bit of sadness. And this girl is very cheerful.
Okay.
She's absolutely...
She's unaware.
Right. And he starts talking to this girl. And this girl says, Doctor, are you going to operate my heart?
Okay.
He says, yes, but don't worry, you will feel no pain. She said, no, I'm not worried. I'm not scared or anything. But you're going to open my heart, she asked. Okay.
So sweet.
He said, yes. Are you scared? No, I'm not scared. But I just wanted to tell you one thing. And this doctor, 65-year-old expert, he says, what is it? So this little child says, my mother always used to tell me, when I asked, where is God? She would say that God lives in your heart.
Oh.
So he says, when you open my heart, just see if he is there.
So sweet.
And if he is there, just observe how he is. And after the surgery, you can tell me how he looks. Okay, and this doctor was really shocked by this, and he started doing the surgery. And after the surgery, he realized that that girl was not surviving. The heart had to take over from the heart-lung machine. It was not happening. The blood was not coming into the heart. Some technical this one. And he felt sad, and he told the junior doctors, just stitch her up. I don't think she's going to survive. And just when they start, he remembers this, these words of this conversation that he had. So he says, wait. And for the first time in his life, he stops, he closes his eyes and he prays to God.
Okay.
And this doctor says, God, I'm probably the best in this, but I can't do more than this. I've done my best. But this child had so much faith in you. Today, my efforts stop. I'm praying to your grace. He said he hardly made that prayer. One of the junior doctors shouted, he said, Doctor, blood is coming into the heart.
My goodness.
And that person was so moved. He said, see, that is because that little girl had been given that culture.
Beautiful.
At that age, she could infuse that culture into a 65-year-old man.
I mean, this beautiful story, there is absolute surrender and absolute faith. Again, these beautiful words of Swami come back. Swami, how do we increase our faith? He says either you have faith or you don't have faith. There's no question of incremental increase in faith. So when there is absolute faith, things happen on their own.
Right.
How beautiful it is.
Beautiful. Shall we go to the next clip in that?
Right.
This one?
Yes, we should.
Right. I think this should be the 5th clip. And we will see what Swami has to say in this part of the discourse.
ఈనాటి విజ్ఞాన శాస్త్రం పెరిగిపోయినదే కానీ
Today's science has made tremendous progress,
దానికి తగినట్టుగా అజ్ఞానం కూడా చాలా పెరిగిపోయింది.
but along with it, ignorance also has grown enormously.
ఇవి రెండు కూడాను బ్యాలెన్స్ మాది పోతుండాయి.
It looks as though that there is some balance.
కేవలం బ్యాలెన్స్ అని కూడా చెప్పడానికి వీలు కాదు.
It is difficult to call that a
మానవుని
balance.
యొక్క జీవితం అంతా కూడా నాలెడ్జ్ పైన డెవలప్ అయ్యింది.
Man's entire life is developed on the
అయితే
basis of
ఈ
knowledge.
నాలెడ్జ్ ని ఏం చేస్తున్నాం మనం?
But what is it that we are doing with this knowledge?
నాలెడ్జ్ ని స్కిల్ చేస్తే మన బ్యాలెన్స్ చక్కగా ఉంటుంది. నాలెడ్జ్ ని కిల్ చేస్తే బ్యాలెన్స్ చెడిపోతుంది.
If you skill the knowledge, there will be balance. If you kill the knowledge, then everything gets.
ఈనాటి విద్యార్థులందరూ కూడా తమ యొక్క నాలెడ్జ్ ని కిల్ చేస్తున్నారు.
Today's students are killing their knowledge.
ఎట్లా చేస్తున్నారు కిల్?
How are they killing it?
See no evil, see what is good. Hear no evil, hear what is good. Talk no evil, talk what is good. Think no evil, think what is good. Do no evil, do what is good. This is skill. కానీ always bad look, bad talk, bad thoughts, bad eye, bad work. ఇదంతా కూడా కిల్లింగ్. మన దృష్టి చాలా పవిత్రమైనటువంటిది. చెడ్డను చూడరాదు.
Our sight is very sacred. Do not see bad.
మన టంగ్ జిహ్వే రసగ్ని మధుర ప్రియత్వం సత్యం హితం త్వాం పరమం వదామి ఆవర్ణయేత మధురాక్షరాణి. మన టంగ్ ఎంత పవిత్రమైనటువంటిది.
What a sacred tongue we are having.
ఏ విధమైనటువంటి చెడ్డ మాటలు దీనిలో ప్రవేశపెట్టరాదు.
We should not allow our tongue for
పరదూషణ అంతకంటే ప్రవేశపెట్టరాదు.
We should never criticize anyone.
పరులను హాస్యాస్పదము చేయరాదు.
We should never make fun of any other person.
పరులను చిన్నపరచరాదు.
We should not belittle anyone.
పరుల దోషములను మనం ఎప్పుడు కూడా ఉచ్చరించరాదు.
We should not go on uttering others' weaknesses and faults.
కనుకనే నీ యొక్క చేతనైతే ఉపకారం చేయి, లేకపోతే ఊరిక కూర్చో. ఊరిక కూర్చోవటం ఉపకారం చేయకుండా పోవటమే గొప్ప ఇది.
If possible, help others. If you cannot, do not harm others. That is itself
ఇతరులకు
a great.
అపకారం చేయొద్దు, అదే పెద్ద ఉపకారం.
Not harming others itself is a great help which you would have rendered.
విద్యార్థి యొక్క స్థితి జీవిత భవనమునకు పునాది వంటి.
Student's life is the foundation for the human life itself.
ఈ బ్రహ్మచర్యం అనేటువంటిది ఫౌండేషన్.
The brahmacharya stage, celibate stage is the foundation.
గృహస్థము అనేటువంటిది దానిపైన కట్టినటువంటి యొక్క గోడలు.
The family stage may be compared to walls on this foundation.
వానప్రస్థము అనేటువంటిది రూఫ్.
The vanaprastha stage may be compared to the roof.
మన జీవితమే లైఫ్.
Our life itself.
కనుకనే సెల్ఫ్ కాన్ఫిడెన్స్ ఫౌండేషన్.
Self-confidence, therefore, is
సెల్ఫ్
foundation.
సాటిస్ఫాక్షన్ వాల్.
Self-satisfaction is the wall.
సెల్ఫ్ సాక్రిఫైస్ రూఫ్.
Self-sacrifice is the roof.
సెల్ఫ్ రియలైజేషన్ లైఫ్.
Self-realization itself is the life.
కనుక ఈ నాలుగింటి ఎందుకును మనం తగినటువంటి ఒక పునాది పైన ఆధారపడి ఉంటుండాలి.
All these four depend upon the very foundation itself.
పునాది భద్రంగా ఉండినప్పుడే మన జీవితము సుఖశాంతులను పొందుతుంది.
Only when the foundation is strong, our life would be safe and happy.
విద్యార్థులారా, ఈ యొక్క విద్యాస్థితి యందు మీ యొక్క జీవితమును చక్కగా గుర్తించి ఆదర్శవంతమైనటువంటి విద్యార్థులుగా మీరు రూపొందించాలి.
Dear students, your student life must be so fashioned to become ideal students in life.
విద్య అత్యవసరం.
Education is essential.
ఈనాడు సైన్స్ అండ్ టెక్నాలజీ కూడా చాలా అవసరమే.
Science and technology are also very necessary.
సైన్స్ చెడ్డది కాదు,
Science is not bad in
కానీ
itself,
దానిని ఉపయోగించుకునేటువంటి విధానంలో చెడు మార్గం జరుగుతుండాలి.
but there is something wrong the way that you use science.
దానిని పెడమార్గం పట్టిస్తున్నారు.
We are using them in the wrong sense.
చేతిలో కత్తి ఉంటుండాలి.
You have a knife in the hand.
ఈ కత్తితో పండ్లు కోసుకోవచ్చును, కూరగాయలు తరుచుకోవచ్చును.
You can use the knife to cut the fruits or vegetables.
కానీ ఆ కత్తితో ఇంకొకరు గొంతు కూడా కోయొచ్చు.
You can also use the knife to cut the throat of another
కత్తి
person.
దోషము కాదు, దాని కత్తిని పట్టినటువంటి వ్యక్తి దోషం.
The mistake doesn't lie with the knife, but
సైన్స్
with the
అలాంటిది.
user. Similar is the state of science.
కనుకొని ఈనాడు సైన్స్ సైన్స్ సైన్స్, ఈ సైన్స్ అనేటువంటిది ఆధ్యాత్మికమే లేకపోతే సైన్స్ గుడ్డిది.
Without spirituality, science is blind.
స్పిరిచువాలిటీ లేకపోతే ఈ యొక్క ఆధ్యాత్మిక కుంటిది.
Without spirituality, it will become lame.
కనుకని ఈ సైన్స్ అండ్ స్పిరిచువాలిటీ రెండింటి యొక్క ఏకత్వాన్ని మనం నెగటివ్ పాజిటివ్ మాదిరి చేర్చాలి.
We have to use science and spirituality as negative and positive.
ఇహమును సుఖింప హేమతారక విద్య, పరమును సుఖింప బ్రహ్మ విద్య.
To enjoy life on earth,
ఈ లౌకిక జగత్తుకంతా కూడాను ఈ సైన్స్ కొంతవరకు అవసరమే.
science is useful to you to live a worldly life.
కానీ ఈ సైన్స్ కూడాను ఎంతవరకు అంతవరకు దానిని హద్దు పెట్టుకుంటూ పోవాలి.
But we should also exercise and set certain
ఈ
limits
సైన్స్
for
లోపల
science.
మైండ్ ఆత్మ అనేటువంటిది ఏమాత్రం ఉండలేదు.
You cannot come across words like mind and atma. So,
కేవలం నాలెడ్జీ
science.
నాలెడ్జీ నాలెడ్జీ.
The only thing that is concentrated is
ఇది కేవలం
knowledge.
ఒట్టి గ్యాస్.
This is
దీనివల్ల ఏమీ ప్రయోజనం లేదు.
absolutely useless.
మైండ్ మనకు ఉండాలి.
We should have our own mind.
మన ఏవ మనుష్యానాం కారణం బంధమోచేహో, మనస్సు అనేటువంటి దాని వల్లనే మనిషి అని పేరు వచ్చింది.
Man gets the name man because of his mind.
కనుక ఈ మనస్సు అనేటువంటి దానిని నిత్యానిత్య విషయ పరిశీలన, అది డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ పవర్ ఉండాలి.
Use the mind based upon power of discrimination.
ఈనాటి ప్రపంచంలో 5 రకములైనటువంటి నాలెడ్జి ఉంటుండాలి.
In today's world, there are 5 types of knowledge.
మొట్టమొదటి నాలెడ్జి అందరికీ తెలిసినటువంటి విషయమే.
All of you know this particular thing.
ఇదే బుకిష్ నాలెడ్జి.
The first one is bookish knowledge.
ఇది సర్వాంతర్యామిగా ఉంటుండాలి ఈ నాలెడ్జి.
This seems to be omniscient. Everywhere you
ఈ
can find it.
బుకిష్ నాలెడ్జి నే సూపర్ఫిషియల్ నాలెడ్జి గా మారుతుండాలి.
This itself is becoming superficial knowledge in the
ఈ
next stage.
బుకిష్ నాలెడ్జి సూపర్ఫిషియల్ నాలెడ్జి మాత్రం ఇప్పుడు అందరి యందు ఉంటుండాలి.
This bookish knowledge and superficial knowledge
కానీ
can be found
జనరల్
in
నాలెడ్జి
every man.
జీరో.
But general knowledge is zero.
ఇది మూడవది.
This is the third one.
నాలుగవది డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ నాలెడ్జి.
Fourth one is discrimination
ఈ
knowledge.
డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ నాలెడ్జి ఎట్ట చేస్తున్నారు? తనకు అనుగుణ్యంగా కూడా డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ చేస్తున్నాడు.
This discrimination is used in a selfish way.
ఇది కేవలం ఇండివిజువల్ డిస్క్రిమినేషన్.
This is individual discrimination.
ఇది సరైనటువంటిది కాదు.
This is not
ఇది
correct.
ఫండమెంటల్ డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ కావాలి. నాకు నీకు జగత్తుకు అందరికీ సత్యము అనేటువంటి యొక్క డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ రావాలి.
This discrimination should become fundamental discrimination applicable for the welfare of everyone, for you,
ఈ
for me, for everyone.
విధమైనటువంటి డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ చేసినప్పుడే ప్రాక్టికల్ నాలెడ్జి మనకు వస్తుంది.
Only when you use this kind of fundamental discrimination, you get
ఈనాడు
practical knowledge.
ప్రాక్టికల్ నాలెడ్జి చాలా తక్కువ.
Today, practical knowledge is very much less.
కేవలం బుకిష్ నాలెడ్జిని ఆధారం చేసుకొని వాదోపవాదములు జరుగుతుండాలి.
All the arguments are carried on the basis of bookish knowledge.
ఒకరు ఎస్ ఒకరు నో.
One says yes, another says no.
ఇంతటితోనే మనం పిచ్చిపోతుండాలి జీవితం.
We are ending our life.
ప్రతి దాని ఎందుకు మనము దిగాలి.
There is a need for getting into life.
అన్నిటినీ ఎదుర్కోవాలి. లైఫ్ ఈజ్ ఛాలెంజ్, మీట్ ఇట్.
Life is a challenge. We have to meet it.
లైఫ్ ఈజ్ గేమ్, ప్లే ఇట్. లైఫ్ ఈజ్ లవ్, ఎంజాయ్ ఇట్. లైఫ్ ఈజ్ డ్రీమ్, రియలైజ్ ఇట్. ఇది మనం చేయవలసినటువంటి, అన్నిటినీ ఎదుర్కొంటూ పోవాలి.
We have to face life. We have to face
ఈ
problems.
ఎదుర్కొని పోయినప్పుడు మనకు ఒక విధమైనటువంటి యొక్క తృప్తి కలుగుతుంది.
Only when you face problems and achieve, you get
అదే
satisfaction.
మన కాన్షియన్స్ సాటిస్ఫాక్షన్.
That is satisfaction of your conscience. Conscience.
So that was the clip, which was, as we said, the 5th clip in that discourse. I mean, some phenomenal points which Swami was making there. I mean, of course, we are nobody to comment how good the points were. But, so profound and in such quick succession, some very, very beautiful points Swami made in that particular clip.
Very true. I mean, it starts off by saying science has advanced but ignorance has grown correspondingly. And that sentence itself is a topic for a 1 hour discussion.
Absolutely. And this particular statement that Swami is making, when we skill our knowledge and when we kill our knowledge.
Right.
When we skill our knowledge, life is well balanced. When we kill our knowledge, the balance is upset. Kind of looking at this statement.
Yes.
Today we are seeing that, all knowledge in any field, be it in the field of economics, physics, quantum mechanics, chemistry, biology or ecosystem and any of these things, I think what knowledge is driving us to do is to see connectivity.
Okay.
Is the ability to see how one small entity in the system relates to the entire system, how it influences the entire system, and how eventually everything is one. Be it ecology or be it quantum mechanics says this.
Yes.
So anything which you do, which is probably not in line with this idea that everything is one, is probably killing knowledge.
Right.
Isn't it? You are saying that I'm becoming knowledgeable, but at the same time when you are standing by selfishness and saying that, this should benefit me, or this will harm the other person, I don't care, it benefits me, you're actually going in a direction completely contrary to what knowledge is suggesting, in any field for that matter.
Right. I mean, this is such a paradox in the sense, when you say, on one side, we say science is advanced, and if you equate science to knowledge, Swami says, as science is or knowledge is advancing, even ignorance is growing up. And he is not telling that ignorance is growing up in the people who are not educated or in the people who don't have access to this knowledge, but it is going up in the people who have this knowledge. It's such a contradiction that on one hand we spend all our lives thinking that we are getting educated and we have this knowledge, but Swami is saying in the same people ignorance is going up as well. So the only answer to this, I think, which Swami has told many times, Adhyatma Vidya Vidyanam, and that's the point he comes to in this, because science is bereft of spirituality and spiritual outlook. In fact, I heard a talk by a scholar. He was explaining the Atma Bodha of Shankaracharya. And Shankaracharya says that the problem is we do not try to understand what the actual problem is. Okay, because according to Shankaracharya, Advaita is pure logic, and it is absolutely clear from his point of view that how can people not understand Advaita? Okay. And he says that what is the problem that people are facing today? He says it is ignorance. And what is the cure for ignorance? It is knowledge. And what is the kind of knowledge that cures ignorance? It is Atma Vidya. So very beautifully he says, and then the scholar who is explaining this point, he says, it's very simple. It's like if you are hungry and somebody tells you go and play sports. Playing games or sports is not going to appease your hunger. Having food is going to appease your hunger. So the first point is trying to recognize what is it that we lack? What is it that we need to grow on, that we need to develop? And if people, of course, that's the case with most of us, are leading our lives thinking that, yes, I have acquired this knowledge, I am a PhD, I am a double PhD, a postdoc, and I am a great doctor, I am a scientist, I am so-and-so, so-and-so. I am a philosopher, even that, in one level. But you are not having an experience of what true knowledge or true wisdom is, then you are as good as being ignorant.
Absolutely. In fact, just jumping the sequence here, where Swami is speaking about the different kinds of knowledge, bookish knowledge, superficial knowledge. Even as Swami was saying that, I was just thinking, imagine the period of time before we started writing down knowledge. The printing press came much later. But even the time when we started documenting, as we always knew that it was only Shruti, it was only heard and spoken.
Correct.
It was never consigned to written manuscripts. Till that point, it was so difficult to have somebody else's knowledge.
Okay.
Especially where traveling was not much. Very few people traveled. Most of the people, 90 to 80% of their life spent it in a very small radius. In such a case, does that mean that person can never be knowledgeable?
Correct.
There must have been an inherent ability for that person to become knowledgeable. And I think in the process of us sharing each other's knowledge, which of course has its own benefits,
Yes.
we have also stopped seeking for the knowledge ourselves. We are happy to take somebody else's knowledge and believe that we are knowledgeable.
Right.
You can see it more, in fact, today, where I often find that, let's say that I'm writing an article or I have to give a talk.
Okay.
It is so easy for me to sound knowledgeable or appear knowledgeable.
Correct.
It just takes probably half an hour, 1 hour for me to spend on the internet.
Google.
Right. I can pick from a variety of topics. Start
Correct.
from neuroscience, economics. I can pick up from political science.
Yes.
The ability, probably if I was thinking the other day, if 50, 60 years ago, if somebody had to give a talk as knowledgeable as this,
Yes.
you really knew that person was knowledgeable.
Very true.
At least
Very
he has
true.
spent time reading books.
Correct.
But today it's browsing, it's so much more easier.
Yes.
You can do it at the comfort on your bed. You can sit and browse all this and do it.
Exactly.
So becoming knowledgeable or appearing knowledgeable is so much more easier today. And in that process, as you said, thinking that I'm a philosopher, I'm a PhD, I'm a this, I'm a that, that quest for seeking knowledge is dying out. And probably that's why Swami is saying that, the problem is the more knowledgeable you're becoming, the more ignorant you're becoming.
Yeah, that's such a powerful statement. And then he says, how is that ignorance exhibited, if you may ask? It's by killing the knowledge. He says today what people are doing is they're killing the knowledge, they're not skilling the knowledge. And, if you just think of it, it's most easiest way of explanation or deliverance where he says, how is it happening? See no evil, see what is good. I mean, there cannot be a line simpler than this. It is absolute truth. He says, see no evil, see what is good. Hear no evil, hear what is good. Think no evil, talk no evil, do no evil. I mean, these are such simple sentences. And the story of the child that you just narrated comes back to my mind. How easy it is if you just have faith in these sentences. Just forget everything else. Swami told that see no evil, see what is good. Here, this again links it back to the 1990 series where he says, everything that you take through your eyes, nose, mouth, ear, everything is food.
Right.
And so he says, the kind of inputs that you're taking into your system, if it is good, then you're having good food. And when you have good food, you have good thoughts. And when you have good thoughts, you do good actions. So that way it's linked.
In a way, if you look at it, if you see the field of medicine, and today it's become such a fad, you say, okay, what is it you should do to avoid cancer? What is it you should do to avoid cardiac problems and all that?
Correct.
Somebody has done the research. Okay, somebody has done the research of going into the human body. Somebody has done a statistical study.
Right.
At the end of it, it has been told to you, don't eat before, do your exercise, or don't sleep after you eat, or some simple things like that.
Yes.
We have no issues in accepting such instructions. That's precisely what Swami is doing here. What is the ultimate knowledge? Probably Adhyatmikam or Advaitam, as Swami would say. So that knowledge, somebody has explored it, somebody has spent their lifetime and established it. Till I get there, what am I supposed to do? Swami is saying it's so simple. See no evil, speak no evil.
It comes
Don't
to that.
speak behind somebody's back.
Yeah.
Don't harm anybody. If you can't help anybody, it's okay, but ensure that you don't harm anybody.
Correct. And the power and the potential of the tongue and words, Swami has given so much importance to it. And he himself lived it. I don't think there is any word that Swami spoke which is either in good humor or it's a discourse or just a conversation. Every word is, measured. Every word has its own power. So he taught us by his own life how we should speak and how we should value each word. I remember one paragraph from the 1990 series where he says, who can question God? Who can ask me why I don't speak to a few? Why I speak to a few? Why I choose not to speak to many? I do that because I value my word. If you do not value my word, I do not waste my words on you.
In fact, the discourse which I was going through today, and that Swami was telling the students, I'm giving you an opportunity when I don't speak to you, for you to ask, what should I do for Swami to speak to me? It's such a special thing. And Swami said, this will help you when you go out.
Oh.
He said, when you go out, when you're in a situation, when you want an answer, you will know how to get answers from Swami.
Beautiful.
He said, you will know how to ask in a way that Swami will answer. So that I'm teaching you that now. When you're in a position where you are asking, why Swami is not talking to me, you will know what you should do for Swami's grace to come on you.
Beautiful. And then Swami goes to the Brahmacharya and he says, self-confidence is the foundation. And
it's actually a very beautiful thing, because in this, Swami is clubbing two of his quotations.
Yes.
And it's so beautiful. When Swami puts it this way, you see the correlation. Right? In the first one, Swami says Brahmacharya is the foundation. The Grihastha or the householder stage are the walls.
Yes.
And Vanaprastha or the forest dwellers is the roof.
Correct.
Right? And juxtaposed with the other quotation which Swami says, that self-confidence is the foundation, self-satisfaction is the wall, self-sacrifice the roof. And now so beautifully you can place one against the other. Brahmacharya stands for self-confidence. And the householder stage stands for self-satisfaction. And the Vanaprastha stage stands for self-sacrifice. No, so beautiful.
And then he says self-realization is the life.
Right. Self-realization is the life.
Very beautiful. As always, only Swami can do it. Then he says these 4 stages depend on the strength of the foundation. And when people are constructing a building, they have to definitely look at the foundation and how strong it is and make sure it's pest controlled. And there are so many factors that come into construction of a building. But the foundation of self-confidence that Swami is talking about, the way he brought that in his students, be it the art of public speaking, be it the art of dance, of music, of singing, of anything, it's the patronage that he gave. It's the platform that he gave. I mean, where do you get university students getting a platform to perform in front of so many people? It gives them the confidence.
I mean, even as you're saying about how Swami trained, I'm reminded of one of my seniors whom Swami picked up to give a talk.
Okay.
And those days Swami used to come and sit on the chair outside the portico, and Swami would randomly pick up some boys and ask them to speak. This senior, pretty much gave a very good talk. He was a good speaker. He had very good control over the language. He spoke really well.
Okay.
And we were all thinking that he spoke well, but we could see that Swami was upset.
Okay.
And the way it is, Swami is sitting in the podium is just beside Swami. Swami can't really see the speaker completely. And Swami, you could make out that Swami was displeased with something.
Okay.
And after the talk, this boy goes up to Swami and to take blessings. Swami looks at him, and you know what Swami says? Swami said, "Why is your left eyebrow going up every time you start a sentence?"
Oh.
He said, every time you start a sentence, your left eyebrow goes up as though you're signaling to somebody. He said, no, you should not do like that. See, that will distract the people who are watching you.
How particular.
Body language is so important that, decorum and everything has to be maintained.
In society, Sabha Maryada, as people would say, absolute respect to the audience who is there. And again, when he comes for a discourse, how perfect is his poise, the way he stands up, the way he maintains the posture. There is nothing, you don't see him scratching, or you don't see him moving this way, that way, restless, nothing. Absolutely, in control, and so beatific. I mean, he set such high standards, I would say.
Very true. It really, that pose in which Swami used to stand. I mean, when you're saying it, it kind of hits you, Swami would never even scratch somewhere.
No, it's just coming to me. I mean, you stand on the podium and you have 1,000 eyes looking at you. Swami would point out things like, you cannot pull your pant up.
Absolutely.
I mean, these are the details which Swami goes into. You cannot pull your pant up. You cannot shift your weight from one leg to the other. Swami would say, you cannot raise your hands. You cannot gesticulate. You cannot, shift your weight from one side to other. No. You cannot look restless.
Right.
You have to be in absolute.
In fact, these are all things you'll observe in yourself, when you're doing it. Because even when I'm sitting here and probably doing this program, I realized that, when you're thinking and you're speaking,
Yeah.
your hand goes to adjust the mic, you're adjusting the paper around. Actually speaking, you're restless and you're thinking and you're thinking what to say next.
Right.
But really, Swami never did any of those things.
Nothing.
Swami was,
Swami
my
was
God.
absolutely patient, waiting for the translator to complete, and then he takes over. The next point that Swami makes is how science is not evil, but it's being misused. He says, it is a necessity today. Science and technology are good. They are enabling so many things, so many beautiful things, but it should not be misused.
Right. And one thing which Swami is saying is, the science is not incomplete. And even later Swami says, one person says yes, one person says no.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that even in modern science, the way it is drastically transforming. The other day, I was listening to a talk by a neurosurgeon.
Okay.
He's saying the advances they're making in the field of, neurology is so quickly debunking many of the Freudian psychiatry and, some of these earlier psychologists who are not in the distant past, probably 10, 15 years ago, 20, 30 years ago.
I didn't understand. What does it mean actually?
He was telling about one particular incident where there was a psychological disorder where the person recognizes the voice but does not recognize the person who's standing in front of them.
Okay.
Like he said, that was always seen as a psychological disorder where this person does not trust anybody. Okay. So that was how this psychology was studied. Here's a person, he has the disorder of not able to trust anybody.
Okay.
So now when they did all the brain mapping, when they study the same disorder, they realize what has actually happened is, in the brain, there is one part of the brain which processes images.
Okay.
One part of the brain which processes voices. The part which processes the images, there is some damage by which you can see the person, but you're not able to match it with something in the memory.
Oh.
Okay. So they say that suppose that person's mother comes and starts speaking to him, the voice recognition is there. So his mind, the brain works like, if this person sounds like my mother, but does not look like my mother.
Okay.
So he starts doubting the person. This is an imposter.
So basically what you're saying is problems which were considered as psychological problems
are fast becoming neurological problems.
Are becoming clinical. I mean,
right?
Neurological and clinical. And with the advances in genetic technology, this acronym CRISPR. With this technology, what these people are saying is you can alter the sequence of genes and you can get the kind of child you want. And you can get the kind of crop you want the earth to produce. You can get the kind of fruits, the vegetables, it's already on and we get hybrid varieties and all that. But this is definitely a giant leap forward. And, if there is anything that you would, certain qualities you would want in your own child or anything, it's scientifically possible. So again, there are debates now. There are debates. Is it ethical? How far can you go? Are we not playing God? And what are the side effects? In a very, very broad perspective, it also comes out as selfishness. Because if you observe, nature always balances. If there is thousands of men who have died in a war, the human births following a war would be a lot of male children being born.
Right.
Nature balances. So if there are healthy people, there are also people with a problem. In a way, in a very broad way, nature balances. But if you're trying to cut out that and you're trying to specialize, then I don't know what the consequences are, what it would lead to. I mean, yes, Swami has often said, if there is a tsunami, that's because of excessive fishing. So should we say that fishing is not good? I mean, people live on fish. But then again, it comes back to the limits.
The classic example which Professor Venkatraman would often say.
Yes.
We have Dr. Mohan, who is a diabetologist.
Correct.
I think in one of the interviews, Swami told him, when he was talking about the increase in diabetes and the research which is happening, Swami said it happens because of rice eating. And Swami told it at a time when it was not really established. And the question which often comes to us is, how can something which is a staple diet be the cause of a disease like this?
Correct.
You can understand if some modern changes happen and it's causing a disease, but something which is a staple diet, how can it cause something like diabetes? So he was saying that, how much of this is really true in the sense. But the other day, once when we were talking to Professor Venkatraman, he was telling us that sometime till the Second World War, we were predominantly not rice eaters.
Okay.
He said we were actually eating so many other types of grains like ragi and millets and things like that. And he said it changed during the World War because during the World War they needed to step up all the production, and that was when you had this green revolution coming in post the war.
Correct.
Especially after India's independence, when they found a need to be self-sufficient. So that suddenly increased the production of rice, and without our knowledge, we actually shifted to becoming rice eaters.
Right.
And that way, if you see, what started off as a good move, the desire to feed more people or the desire to create more food, we've actually shifted the balance.
Gone back on the balance.
And something else has to be done. And now we are being told that eat lesser rice, eat more of ragi and things like that.
I mean, what all that we have discussed right now is summarized in this one sentence which Swami says, science is incomplete because it does not encompass the mind and Atma. I mean, what a statement. What a statement. He says science is incomplete because it does not encompass the mind and Atma. And I think that requires its own time for discussion, which we'll have to keep for the next session. Possibly we could start with this sentence in the next episode of Shravanam Mananam.
Right. I mean, it's such a powerful thing. And Swami says, that one statement which he says, man is called Manishi. And that word comes from the word manas. Mind. And how can you talk of science and man without talking about the mind, talking about the Atma?
Right.
And we just didn't realize we've spoken for so long. But I think as we said, that one clip was so profound. Succession of such beautiful and deep thoughts in that one clip which we played.
And, one thing which struck me as we were discussing, every statement that Swami speaks is so relevant in all times. I mean, man is continuing to make the same mistakes and man is continuing to do the same things. You cannot find alternate solutions. This is the solution. You cannot afford to be selfish and get away with it.
Probably Swami is like that school teacher who keeps seeing batch after batch come and make the same mistakes, and the teacher corrects them, and the teacher trains them and teaches them.
Right.
It's like that. Probably Swami is not tired, as we see the 1990, 91 and years Swami kept saying the same thing. As we said in the beginning of the program, the message was eternal and so consistent throughout.
Right.
Probably it's because our ignorance has been consistent throughout. Swami had to tell the same things again. So dear listeners, that brings us to the end of this week's program. We will continue with the same discourse. We have a couple of clips before we conclude this discourse. Hopefully we'll do it in the following week. Do join us again. This is Prem from Team Radio Sai, and with me was Sai Prakash. We humbly offer this effort at Swami's Lotus Feet.